May I come in, sir?
Please come.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Ashna, have a seat.
Thank you, sir.
Ashna Chaudhary, you are from Hapur, Uttar Pradesh.
Yes, sir.
And Ashna has taken anthropology as the optional.
Yes, sir.
At the same time, Ashna has done BA in English.
Yes, sir.
Ashna has got reading, yoga, and jogging as its hobbies. And you have also worked in an NGO also.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And your preference is IAS, IFS, and then IPS. Okay. So, Ashna, I wanted to ask you, do you think organ donation should be made compulsory in this country? There is such a waiting list for kidneys and other organs
Yes, sir.
that by the time the patient dies sometimes. So do you think by legislation one should make the organ donation compulsory?
Sir, organ donation has increased in the country with the annual organ donors being reached 12,000 in the country, in the nation. However, I don't feel it should be made compulsory. It should be left to the will of the person donating. And though yes, health sector requires donors, great number of donors. However, making it compulsory, I think, would take away the right to choose for people. So I think it should not be made compulsory.
Because the problem which we are facing in this country basically arising out of population, pollution and corruption. They are the three main problems.
Yes,
and I think sometime very bitter pill is necessary. So one of them could be organ donation. The second which I wanted to ask you, do you think Indians are very indisciplined people? And do you think that military training should be made compulsory for everyone, all citizens, and particularly the civil servants?
Sir, I would say some form of training is important for the civil servants, but civil sphere and the military sphere are very different spheres. So we require a different kind of training. With civil servants, they have to deal with citizens at the ground level in their day-to-day work, whereas the military is relatively insulated, relatively isolated from the civil society, and hence different kinds of training are required suited to the work that both the organs do. Also, talking about Indians being indisciplined, I would say it's a very general statement. And I have known Indians who are very disciplined as well. Also in history,
when they go abroad, yes, they are very disciplined. But in this country, they are not very disciplined. You know, if there is a sign which says that no parking, you will but park the car there itself. We are so indisciplined.
Sir,
We have scant respect for the laws.
Sir, I would say rather than military training, we should incorporate certain disciplinary studies into the educational curriculum.
But military training has got a low-hanging fruit, and that is discipline comes along with it.
Yes.
So, any other kind of training probably will not bring in the kind of compulsiveness, which military training brings about. Okay, anyway, that's your fault. Tell me, why is it that all the national parties, most of them, they exist above the Tropic of Cancer, and the regional parties are mostly below the Tropic of Cancer? If you have noticed it,
Yes.
almost all the regional parties, they are below the Tropic of Cancer, and the national parties are above.
Sir,
Could you think of some reason?
Sir, I would say regional parties are diffused throughout the country. We find various regional parties in the northeast as well, in Jammu and Kashmir as well, in Uttar Pradesh as well. So, for instance, the Bahujan Samaj Party has mostly been has not been granted the status of national party as of yet. So, I would say regional parties are diffused in the
But
nation,
predominantly
but
they are in the southern parts of the country.
Predominantly they are in the southern part. Yes.
Any
sir.
reason you could ascribe to that?
Sir, I would say that the criteria for designating a party as the national party could be seen as one. The population of the southern states has been on the decline, and hence the votes in the Lok Sabha or the seats in the Lok Sabha secured by these parties have been slightly reduced, which has been consistently flagged off by the parties from the southern India.
Could it
as well.
also be ascribed to the languages? The northern part of this country has almost uniform language, which is common to almost all states, that is Hindi.
Yes, sir.
Southern parts of the country, they have got different languages. So the national party status, one is not able to achieve. Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Tell me how multinational corporation influence the policies making in different countries. Can you give some examples? It has the bargaining power.
Yes, sir. Sir, could I please take some time?
Yes,
to,
why not?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, I would say that the multinational corporations are seen as the soft power by various countries as well, nations as well. For instance, USA after the Cold War has harped on its soft power predominantly and has tweaked its policies to suit the neoliberal order, which is more towards the proliferation of these multinational corporations. For instance, the McDonaldization equated with globalization could be seen as one of the examples, wherein US policies have particularly been suited to these corporations becoming the giants and then also going about in the world.
Examples, if you could give better examples, for example, IBM
Yes, sir.
or Ranbaxy, they have been influencing the policies of the respective national governments. Okay?
All right, sir. I'll look it up more.
Yeah, you have a
Thank
look at
you,
it.
sir.
How the IT policies have been influenced by some of these giant MNCs and so on, and COVID-19 also.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ashna, some questions from anthropology, since anthro is your optional subject.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what are the peculiar problems faced by the primitive tribal groups?
So there are various problems facing the primitive tribal groups. For instance, socio-cultural handicaps is the foremost problem that these groups face. For instance, there are various tribal groups that do not send their children to the schools for the fear that they would lose their religion and would...
That is common to
Yes.
many tribal groups.
Yes, sir.
The peculiar problems of only primitive vulnerable tribal groups.
Yes, sir.
There are 3 or 4 of them.
Sir, declining population is one problem.
Yes.
Another would be the losing economic independence of these tribes. For instance, due to various reasons such as climate.
That is common to others also.
Yes, sir.
May I give you a hint? Type of agriculture.
Yes, sir.
You know, it is primitive, even now.
Yes.
That is second problem. Can you think of any more problems which are peculiar to these tribes only? They are facing other common problems also, but
Yes.
one I have pointed out, one you have pointed out.
Yes, sir.
No problem, you can read up on that.
Yeah, okay, sir.
What is pseudo-tribalism?
So pseudo-tribalism is a process wherein certain caste groups try to emulate the tribals in order to gain the tribal status for the political benefits associated with the tribal groups
Okay, political and the other benefits,
and other economic benefits.
like
social-
reservation and
Yes,
other
sir.
things. Very well. Okay. What is the difference between Brahminization and Sanskritization?
Sir, Sanskritization as a concept has been given by Sir
Yeah, yeah.
M.N. Srinivas.
Yeah.
And
Just the difference.
all right, sir.
Okay.
Sir, Brahminization is pertaining to one caste group, one Varna group. For instance, emulating the Brahmins in order to claim a higher caste status, whereas Sanskritization goes for other caste groups as well.
So, and which caste group is that?
Sir,
What do you call that?
Kshatriyas,
No. So there is a particular term in sociology and anthropology for that. Dominant caste.
Yes, sir.
Dominant caste. And what are the characteristics of dominant caste?
Sir, they have an influence over. They have political influence. They garner large amount of land.
And
Pres-
the third,
I cannot recall.
their strength.
Their
They are more
strength.
numerous.
Yes, sir.
Numerical strength, political influence, more land and money and education.
Yes, sir.
So these are. So can you give one or two examples of the dominant caste? You're from UP.
Yes, sir.
So which is the dominant caste in UP?
Sir, Jats, Yadavs, these are the dominant castes.
In different districts.
Yes, sir.
Very well. Okay. Uh, how the industrialization has affected the tribals or the tribal way of life?
Sir, land alienation would be the foremost problem due to industrialization. Another would be indebtedness that emanates from land alienation as well. Cultural impoverishment and the adoption of Western ideals would be another problem.
But adoption of Western ideals, is it a problem per se in itself?
Sir, it has been, there are both pros and cons associated with the adoption of Western ideas. The pros would be more inclination towards education, more progressive ideas coming in, but the cons are also numerous, wherein we are losing our cultural identities and the homogenization of culture is also
So
another
how to
problem.
reconcile these seemingly irreconcilable things? On one hand, you have the requirement of fruits of development
Yes, sir.
reaching all citizens of the country, and on the other hand, quest or the requirement or shall we say an effort to preserve their way of life. How to reconcile the two?
Sir, one approach has been suggested by the former Prime Minister of India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. It is known as the integrationist approach, wherein we try to bring the roots of the fruits of development to the downtrodden through by
No,
training
my question
them.
was in the context of tribals only.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So no downtrodden. Use the word tribal.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, sir, fruits of development to the tribals by way of training some tribals and then letting them on their own to circulate that training and education within themselves.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You read Shakespeare as part of English?
Yes, sir.
A lot of people believe that it's impossible for one man to write so much and such top quality stuff.
Yes, sir.
How do you explain this? Why do people believe that way?
Sir, I would say it's the change in the tradition. When Shakespeare was writing, it was in the Renaissance era. So there were a lot of topics coming up for him to write about. There was geography was one thing. A part of the world was being discovered. Long voyages were being taken. Art in
Oh, that's
art,
fine. So
we
you
were-
think it was one man who wrote, or it was a group of scholars who wrote under the name of Shakespeare and one man? It's like the history remembers the king, not the soldiers who die. So they remember Dr. Ambedkar, not 10 other people who were part of the committee who wrote the constitution.
Yes.
Do you believe in this theory?
Sir,
That Shakespeare was not one man?
Sir, I would say as far as writing goes, it's never a single person writing. It's a derivation of ideas from multiple sources, and that's what would have happened in the times of Shakespeare as well. Also, as far as I know, writing, there would be multiple drafts. I am speculating. I'm not sure, sir. We cannot be. So I think it would be a task of multiple men also that these dramas were being performed in the Globe Theatre in the 16th century. So anyhow, an entire team was involved.
Okay.
So
Now, who's written that poem, Into the Valley of Death, Rode the 600?
I'm sorry, sir, I cannot.
Lord Tennyson. After during the Crimean War, based on Crimean War. Now there are 4 lines, and what I'll read those lines, and you got to tell me whether do they apply to a civil servant or not. All right. theirs is not to make a reply. Theirs is not to reason why. There is but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. What does it apply to civil servants? There's not to reply, there's not to reason why.
Sir, I would say that the Max Weber's vision of civil services was definitely based on this, wherein civil services neutrality and anonymity were the dominant factors. However, with time it has changed. With times, we require more welfare-oriented civil servants who also have a voice.
The question that I'm trying to hint at is, there is not to question why. Will you never question what you're told to do?
No, sir.
You'll
Sir,
do what you've been told?
No, sir, I will question. I will question at certain times, and I will
When it
not be a
violates,
blind
when you're being
follower.
told to do something, when will you question that? When it violates what?
So when it violates the constitution or the law.
Okay, so this does not apply anywhere in life, right? Only sometimes to soldiers. There was a Indo-Sri Lanka Accord in 1987. Do you know something about that?
Sir, I need to brush up my knowledge on this, but I have a faint idea.
Okay.
It was an accord signed, I do not remember the Sri Lankan counterpart, but between Rajiv Gandhi as the Prime Minister of India. And this was when the peacekeeping forces were sent to the Indian peacekeeping forces were sent to Sri Lanka in the wake of the Liberation Tigers, Tamil Eelam.
We went to get an accord signed,
Yes, sir.
and we landed up fighting the very people who we went to help. Why did that happen?
Sir, I would say that was that has been seen by various scholars as a miscalculation on the Indian part and the misjudgment on the Indian part to get into a war that was being fought on the foreign land amongst the Tamils and the Sinhalese. So there is one strand that sees it as a miscalculation and another strand
There
of
was one
scholars
major
that,
fault,
Yes,
one major fault. Rest everything was okay. So many things went wrong. Can you put your finger on that? What was major thing that was wrong with this accord?
So we were not aware of the geography of Sri Lanka, and yet we sent our soldiers to fight a war.
No, we never sent them to fight. That happened
Yes,
later. Anyway, please read about that.
Yes.
The reason was that Tamil was one of the party, and they never signed the accord. The sign was between Rajiv Gandhi and the president of USA. So just the interested, affected party was not part of this.
Yes, sir.
See, this is foreign policy blunder.
Thank you,
Your
sir.
second choice is IFS.
I'll look it
Right?
up, sir.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Ashna, you belong to Uttar Pradesh.
Yes, sir.
Some people believe that it is, by virtue of its very size, highly and large population, it is becoming ungovernable and that it needs to be divided further.
Yes, sir. There have been various demands of dividing Uttar Pradesh. Firstly, to divide it into East and Western Uttar Pradesh, and thereupon to divide it into 4 parts for the ease of administration
What is your take on
purposes.
that?
Sir, I would say it is certainly easier for the administration of the smaller states. However, there are various nitty-gritties that need to be looked at. For instance, if we divide Uttar Pradesh into 2 parts, for instance, Eastern and Western Uttar Pradesh, the fruits of development would be cornered by one part, and the other part would be left a little backward. Also, the feelings of regionalization may rise. Okay. So there are various issues that are involved as well.
Okay. IFS is your number 2 choice.
Yes, sir.
Service preference. Last week, some offices of BBC were raided
Yes, sir.
by the Income Tax Department in Delhi and Bombay. Of course, the raid was euphemistically called surveys by the government. But do you think, as an aspirant for IFS, it will affect or it will impact adversely the relationship between India and UK?
Sir, I would say Indian government has taken a stand on based on its domestic laws, and it's a domestic affair for the Indian government, and it should not have implications on the relationship between India and UK, because these are the rates that have been also been done in the past on various companies. Also, the various laws of India, such as the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act,
Don't
and
you
the
think that
income.
UK government is giving large funds to this body?
Yes, sir.
It is more or less a government body. It is not a
Yes.
corporation. It is name-wise it is a corporation, but it is actually a government body because large amount of funds are being given.
Yes, sir.
So UK could take umbrage at this gesture.
Sir, it would have an impact, but I don't think it should be a great impact, or Indian government is wrong in doing this, because entirely wrong if it's not, because we have a very straightforward law related to NGOs as well, the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, wherein we have taken similar steps on NGOs like Amnesty International and other such NGOs.
Do you see any early end to Russia-Ukraine war?
Sir, I would say the war has stretched, definitely. An early end, I'm not sure, sir.
Okay, never mind. One last question.
Yes, sir.
There is a talk of making India as a Hindu Rashtra. Do you agree with this?
No, sir, I do not agree with this, because the identity of India is premised upon its plurality, and that is one value that we have also vouched for in the international fora: unity in diversity and the plurality. So, and this
Will it
was-
have some impact, negative impact on the minorities in India?
India becoming a Hindu Rashtra? Yes, sir, definitely it will have some impact on the minorities. One would be the element of discourse, which holds a very important place, wherein certain sections would be kept out of the discourse in order to project the image of India. So that is one problem that will emerge. Also, the minorities would feel a little distanced, which has never been the vision of the constitution makers of the country as well.
Thank you.
Ashna, what is Hapur famous for?
Ma'am, Hapur is famous for Hapur as a district is famous for the textile products, for its papads as well.
Okay, so how is the textile sector doing there? Is it flourishing?
Ma'am, we have around 120 medium-scale industries and 1,400 power looms. We are doing great in terms of handloom sector as well, but recently in the wake of COVID-19 and certain other global exigencies, the textile sector has been in the dip throughout the country, and so in Hapur as well.
Was there something in the budget specifically for textile sector?
Ma'am, I haven't gone through this budget, the budget for this year entirely. I'm still in the process, but as far as the last year's budget was concerned, PM Mitra scheme was inaugurated in that.
Okay, Ashna, what is your opinion on India allowing Taliban to have an envoy in Delhi?
Ma'am, I would say India is taking a very realistic approach. It is trying to engage in Afghanistan via the Taliban route, and it is not the only country to do so. However, India has not granted an official status to Taliban yet. And so for India's engagement into a region where it has been active for quite long, and which is also volatile and may turn against India's interest in the coming years, it is important that we engage in the region through some means, and Taliban is one of the means.
Ashna, can you give me a snapshot of current state of Indian economy?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we are very hopeful of the GDP growth. We are speculating that the GDP would rise to 7% per year as per NSO stats. The exports are dipping, imports have been rising. The current account deficit, we have a current account deficit. It is increasing, and the forex reserves, we have seen a recent dip after forex reserves being high for quite some years. We have seen a dip. We have seen a dip now. So these are the broad trends that I am aware of.
Ashna, what do you think is responsible for Northeasterns or Africans getting attacked in Delhi?
Ma'am, there could be a strong identity, a sense of identity in group and out group sort of understanding could be one reason that these groups are attacked.
Isn't it racism?
It could be seen as one of the forms of racism.
Okay, so will it be right to say that India is a racist country?
Ma'am, I would not agree with that, because the steps that have been taken by certain groups should not be attributed to the entire nation.
But you see, we are always endorsing fairness schemes. You know, we have such attacks happening. We have so many other things in our society that point towards racism. If we don't accept it, how will we work on it?
Yes, ma'am. We have started accepting it as well.
So you're accepting that India is a racist country?
No, ma'am. Accepting that we have, there have certain steps have been taken where that have led to the notion that India is a racist country. So we are trying to correct those measures by a notion or by a discourse of inclusivity, I would say.
Ashna, you see, women voters are increasing, but the representation of women in politics is still the same.
Yes,
Why is that happening? Why do women not vote for women?
Ma'am, because there may be a lack of faith still lingering because of the phenomena that we have seen at the local levels, such as the Sarpanch Pati syndrome. So there is a trust deficit of women in other women that needs to be taken care of.
If you had to run a campaign for this, what would it include?
Ma'am, one would be inclusivity, another would be representation, and the substantive fight that we as a gender need to take upon.
Okay. Ashna, I would want to end this conversation with you by knowing the happiest day of your life.
The happiest day of my life. Ma'am, I am generally a very happy person, so I would need some time to recollect that. Ma'am,
Okay, then you can tell me the saddest day of your life. I'm sure you remember that if you're a happy person.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the saddest day of my life was, it hasn't been a long while back. So my mother was detected with certain lumps in her uterus as well as breast, and she was asked to undertake some tests, wherein her reports showed that the mammography reports showed that those lumps indicate BIRATS 4. And so after, so BIRATS 4 could mean cancer, and it is very likely.
Why is breast cancer increasing in India?
Ma'am, breast cancer, one could be that it has always been there, but the reporting has increased. So one could be that, and there are various factors attributed to this. The high cost of medicines that is leading to the lingering of these, or the deaths, higher deaths.
Your point is taken. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So you're brilliant. All the best to you. You'll perform extremely well.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All the best.
Thank you.
Unacademy. Let's crack it.